So,
Wow.
I,
Where
so,
are you? Where are you, Machadi?
I'm in Calcutta. My parents are over here now.
Oh,
So I'm in
wow.
Calcutta
Wow.
at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, so Hare Krishna. So Om Jnana Timirandhyasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sakana Lalita Shri Visakha Vidamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyo Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji.
Hari Hari Bol. So today we're reading from the second canto, chapter 6, verses 10 and 11. Purusha Shukta confirmed. So why it needs a confirmation, I've no idea. But that's the title of this chapter. Prabhupada is always very mystical with his chapter titles. However, it's a continuation of chapter 6, and now this evening we're on verses 10 and 11. So, verse 10. Para bhutera tamasya chapi paschimaha najonada nadinam cha gotranam ashti samhitatai. Translation. The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In order to defy the impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a systematic analysis of the physiological and anatomical constitution of his transcendental body is given here. So this, you see the way Prabhupada, almost at every occasion, at every step, no matter what the subject matter is, regardless of whatever Prabhupada is talking about, lecturing about, on a morning walk, in conversations with devotees, in his room, while he's taking bath, while he's been given a massage, every single opportunity Prabhupada takes to hammer the impersonalists, every chance. And we see, like here in the first sentence, in order to defy the impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a systematic analysis, that's what this chapter is about, a systematic analysis of the physiological and anatomical constitution of his transcendental body is given here. So people say, people go into, doing yoga and doing hatha and doing this and doing that and all kinds of standing positions and standing on the head and standing on one leg, and you get so many, we see it every time we go to India. We see somebody standing on a street corner somewhere, standing on one leg. I've seen it so many times on the beach in Bombay, at Juhu. Somebody is standing on a leg, somebody is standing upside down, and he does that for so many years. Somebody else grows their nails, somebody grows their hair, and then when he finishes standing on his head for 500 years or whatever is he's been there standing on his head, people giving donations, his son comes and he takes over that sampradaya, and then he does it, and then his son does it, and it goes on for generations. And what is the conclusion? I mean, it's wonderful that people can perform tapasya to that extent, and they have their senses controlled to that extent. I mean, I couldn't stand on one leg for 5 minutes. What to speak of generations of people doing it, one son, and then the grandson, and then the grandson, and then the great-grandson. I mean, I've no idea. I mean, how they do it. I mean, you have to admire them. That degree of tapasya that they have within their psyche. But what's the use? What is the use if they don't develop this personal concept of the absolute truth? If it's just, for the sake of tapasya, for tapasya's sake, it's boom. It's like tomorrow we're having a little bit of a birthday party here. It's my daughter's birthday, it's my birthday, so because it's happening on Gorpurnim, we're combining the two. So I'm going to London to celebrate Gorpurnim in London. But anyway, we have all these balloons and everything. So this human form of life is like one of these balloons. As we were blowing them up, one of them, boop, it popped. The last time we had a party was for my wife's birthday, and my grandchildren arrived. We didn't have balloons, and my granddaughter said, where's the party? No balloons means no party. So this life is like that. It's like it's so fleeting. It's so fleeting, this human form of life. I'm proud, but it's not that he's rapping or beating the impersonalists over the head with a stick. Yes, he's doing that, but he's doing it in such a way that people can understand, unless you develop the personal conception of the absolute truth, unless you develop a relationship with Krishna as a person. all your attributes, all your knowledge, all your endeavor, it just comes to nothing. It comes to absolutely zero. You can grow your nails, as long as your body, and grow your hair, and get in the Guinness Book of Records, and fly, solo across the Atlantic, and, swim the Pacific Ocean, with a rock tied behind your back. It makes no difference. All this is just pratishta, at best, pratishta. And what is the use of it? It's a complete waste of time. So here in the first sentence, Prabhupada is putting his foot down and getting the message across straight away. He doesn't mess about it. And you see that with practically every purport of Prabhupada's, he's talking about the impersonalists. It is clear from the available description of the body of the Lord, and we're speaking of his universal form, which appears in many ways to be impersonal. I understand you did Purusha Shukta the other day, which is a prayer, beautiful prayer, long prayer, in glorification of the universal truth. But if we just speak of the universal truth, it's still a person. We're still speaking of a person. I mean, it's not the person that we connect with as devotees, and as Vaishnavas, as aspiring Vaishnavas, it's not the person that we're really interested in. We're more interested in that two-formed, bending form of Krishna appearing as before Arjuna. There's a very interesting purport, if you will please allow, in chapter 18. The famous verse 65, Man mana bhava mad bhakto, where Prabhupada says in the purport, The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. This is the point. What is the use of becoming an official meditator and getting a big title and get world fame, and everybody's, flowing towards you and offering you garlands and falling at your feet and all this kind of stuff? What is the use of that if you don't reach the lotus feet of the Lord? Or you don't surrender to the pure devotee and take shelter at the lotus feet of the pure devotee? So it's a complete waste of time. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. This is the secret. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours, he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise, see, it's a reciprocal relationship. It works two ways. The Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of the Lord, where he will have engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This is it, face to face. So this is what we are after. We're after this personal relationship with God, not this impersonal. Yes, that is there. There's no doubt about it. But it doesn't bring the same degree of satisfaction. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. So this next part, the first time I read this many years ago, it blew my mind completely. I mean, Prabhupada doesn't mince his words here. These words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. This is what we should be meditating on. There are descriptions of Krishna found in Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on this original form of Godhead, Krishna. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, listen to this, one should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayan, Ram, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. So Prabhupada is almost saying here that meditating on other forms of the Lord is almost like diverting our attention from the goal. The goal is of the absolute truth as far as we are concerned, as far as devotees of the Lord are concerned, who are in this particular sampradaya. There are four sampradayas, the four main sampradayas, and they all have their chain of disciplic succession, which are all bona fide sampradayas. There's absolutely nothing to say that this one is better and this one is lesser and this one is higher. No, that's a completely wrong concept. But our particular sampradaya is dedicated to achieving the lotus feet of Krishna. And that is our birthright. Prabhupada goes on to say in today's purport that the form of the Lord is distinct from the forms of ordinary mundane conception. So you see, this is another point. I mean, it's not that we're critical or we want to be critical in any way, shape, or form. We don't. But the emphasis is on the form. So when we speak of the sub-religious principles of other followings, then we can say that there's no form. In fact, they preach against form. And if you meditate on a form in certain places and in certain religions under certain circumstances, you can actually be stoned to death. And that was previously the case, that it was common. Even in Western so-called advanced countries, if you had a different idea other than the common concept on the day, then you were classified as a witch, or you were classified as Satan, or you were classified as this or that or the other, and you were stoned to death, or you were burnt at the stake, or in the case of Lord Jesus Christ, you were crucified. So you daren't come out with any other idea other than what is the common concept of what is religion. And 99.9% of the time, it's wrong. Because there's no sampradaya. Because they're not following anybody. Just following the concept of whatever is in their mind, whatever is a part of their head, whatever you wake up to tomorrow morning, and you just imagine, in your dream at night that, a coffee cup has now become the supreme absolute truth. So then you start worshiping a coffee cup, and everybody will follow you. Prabhupada told a story. Of course, it's in jest, but there is certainly truth to it. There was one fire yagya was going on somewhere in South India. It may have been Madhvacharya. Prabhupada may have been paraphrasing from Madhvacharya, but Prabhupada told the story. There was a fire yagya going on somewhere in South India, and in the middle of the fire yagya, somehow or other, a mongoose or a cat or a rat or something like that came into the area of the havan. So in order not to disturb the whole thing and introduce, this dharmic, absolutely, completely destroying the whole havan, which is a big, big yagya, somebody ran around somewhere and found a bucket and put it over the animal until the fire yagya was over. And then the fire yagya went ahead, and everybody was happy, and everybody went their way. So the Brahmins were paid, and everything was hunky-dory. So then some time later, some months later, somebody else had a similar fire yagya, Bhumi Puja, whatever it was, and then they're just about to start, and somebody said, "Oh, I remember at the last fire yagya, we had a cat under a bucket." Said, "Oh yeah, I was there. I was witness to that." So then somebody said, "Well, we have to find a cat and we have to get a bucket." So they ran off, they catch the cat, they put it in a bucket right beside the havan, and then they carry on, and then that became their sampradaya. But it doesn't matter which religion you pick. Everybody has they're in the concept of the mind. Nobody is following in the solid way and following a scripture and actually following it. Prabhupada said, stay in your place, stay in your position, stay in your home, stay in your work, stay in your factory, stay in your office, but actually follow the religion that you're purporting to represent. Not something that's straight off the top of your head. What is the use of it? So this chapter is describing the universal form. And we know, because we're Vaishnavas, because we're personalists, we'd like to think that we are. We'd like to think we're coming closer and closer to Krishna in his form, Krishna as a person, Krishna playing the bansuri, and Krishna dancing with the gopis. That's what we're hoping to come closer and closer to the realization of this as being a fact, not just some theoretical aspiration, but actually factual. But even in the Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Sri Krishna is showing the universal form to Arjuna, just to show his majesty, and Arjuna is completely bewildered by this, totally knocked out. He just doesn't know he's in fear of this. I mean, you can imagine. Similarly, Mother Yashoda, she got a glimpse of it when she was trying to chastise Krishna and take the dirt out of his mouth. She was going to chastise him with a stick because he was eating dirt. And then, of course, inside Krishna's mouth, she sees another Yashoda, another Krishna, and another Krishna inside that mouth, and another Krishna inside that mouth, and another one, and infinitely. And she just became completely bewildered. And of course, we know Krishna, in his infinite mercy, he allowed her to take the rope and that last few missing inches that was missing from the length of the rope, he allowed himself to be tied. How can you tie the universe? With a rope. It's impossible. But because there is love there, and that Krishna wants to reciprocate with this love, then immediately he allows himself to become dominated by his devotee. He's the predominator in every sense of the word, and he is the Ishvara. But then he takes the position, like he did with Arjuna, he takes the position of servant by driving the chariot. And then everything, that's his glory. That's his wonderment. That's his wanting to engage in this loving reciprocal relationship with his devotee. He's begging for that opportunity. But we shun it. We push it away. And we go towards the impersonal. And then this is why Prabhupada is emphasizing this so much, because we go towards the impersonal. We don't take Krishna as a person. We go through the motions, and we go through the rules, and we go through the regulations, and so on and so forth. Give up all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I will give you protection. Do not fear. That's the next verse from that verse I just quoted in the Gita. But we forget. We forget. And then we lose it. And then, just like the balloons we have blowing up downstairs, little pinprick and psst, and it's over. And the life is gone. And what next? Ignorance is the back of the Lord, and therefore the ignorance of the less intelligent class of men is also not separate from his bodily conception. You see, everything is connected. Ignorance is the back of the Lord, and therefore the ignorance of the less intelligent class of men is not separate from his bodily conception. Nothing can be separate from Krishna. Absolutely nothing, even ignorance. Everything stems from him. Since his body is the complete whole of everything that be, one cannot assert that he is impersonal only. On the contrary, the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both personal and impersonal simultaneously. So the universal form is the Lord. You look up at the stars at night, you look up at the sun, the sunrise or the sunset, you look at a beautiful vista from the top of a mountain. Why do people climb Mount Everest? Why do people climb mountains? Why do people go climbing up in the Alps or whatever, the Himalayas, wherever the case may be? To observe them. They may be impersonalists, but what are they doing? They're recognizing the majesty of the Supreme Lord. They may not even know it because they're impersonalists. They can't see, where is this coming from? This is coming from the Lord himself. On the contrary, Prabhupada says, the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both personal and impersonal simultaneously. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord. And his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. Reflection, like the Brahmajyoti. And Prabhupada always gives that famous example, the sun and the sunshine. In the morning, well, not in England, but most other countries, England is the exception, the sunshine comes shining in your window in the morning time. But so the sun has entered your room. But you cannot say that the sun has entered your room. It's 93 million miles away. But the sunshine has entered your room, so it's just as good as the sun has entered your room. So they're connected. So at the same time, the sunshine and the sun are connected, but they're also different simultaneously. Prabhupada gives the simplest examples that even Irish people can understand. So, it's a simple philosophy. We make it so complicated. We put so many obstacles in the way, and we allow our mind to trip us up all the time. We just have to, just get back to basics. The basics are on the pages of every single book of Prabhupada's books. Those who are fortunate enough to have a view of the Lord from the front can realize his personal feature, whereas those who are frustrated and are thus kept on the ignorant side of the Lord, or in other words, those who have the view of the Lord from the back, realize him in his impersonal feature. So, how many of us have had the opportunity to go to a temple and offer dandavats and stand up and get the beautiful vision of the Murti in the temple? And how many times have we done that? And how many times have we had the opportunity to observe the lotus feet of the Lord and rise up and eventually see the transcendental flute and then his beautiful lotus-like face? And this is open to us every single day. Every day we have this opportunity. And if we can't make it to the temple, we have pictures of the Lord, we have calendars in our house, whatever the case may be. We can worship the Murti in our house, we can have our own little Murti, whatever. We have the transcendental vision of the Lord at every opportunity because this is our desire. We don't want to see Krishna just as a statue standing on the altar. We're engaged in that pastime. We're a part of that pastime. This is us. This is our original personal conception. This is our original personal feature. So now, next is text 11. Avyakta rasa sidunam bhutanam nidanasya cha udram viditam pumso hridayam manasapadam. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men. Isn't that a beautiful verse? I mean, it's just so sweet. And that's the impersonal aspect of the Lord. It's the abode of great oceans. Prabhupada says in the purport, in the Bhagavad Gita 8:17-18, it is stated that according to human calculations, one day of Brahma is equal to 1,000 ages of 4 millenniums, 4,300,000 years. Imagine, that's one day of Brahma. 4,300,000 years. And then there's a partial dissolution. Brahma in the evening time, then he feels a little tired. He takes a little rest. Then there's a night of Brahma, when there's a partial dissolution. When Brahma's sleeping, the universe is sleeping. And then Brahma wakes up 4,300,000 years later, and our little 70 or 80 years is gone in the fraction of a second. And this is when we have the chance to run headlong towards Krishna, towards putting the philosophy into practice and taking advantage of this wonderful, wonderful movement that Srila Prabhupada has brought literally to every town and village. And we're hearing stories now coming out. So many activities are going on all over the world. And yes, there are problems, and there's this and there's that, and there's so much things going on that we need to deal with as a society. But there's so much going on that is absolutely glorious. We have so much to be thankful for. We're really flying. And the same period is calculated to be his night also. A Brahma lives for 100 years, such years, and then dies. A Brahma, who is generally a great devotee of the Lord, attains liberation after such a downfall. The universe, called the Brahmanda, or the round football-like domain controlled by a Brahma, is thus annihilated, and thus the inhabitants of a particular planet or of the whole universe are also annihilated. Avyakta, mentioned here in this verse, means the night of Brahma, when partial annihilation takes place and the living entities of that particular Brahmanda, up to the planets of Brahmalok, along with the big oceans, etc., all repose in the belly of the Virat Purusha. At the end of Brahma's night, the creation again takes place, and the living entities reserved within the belly of the Lord are let loose to play their respective parts as if being awakened from a deep slumber. Since the living entities are never destroyed, the annihilation of the material world does not annihilate the existence of the living entities. But until liberation is attained, one has to accept one material body after another again and again. The human life is meant for making a solution to this repeated change of bodies and thereby attaining a place in the spiritual sky where everything is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In other words, the subtle forms of the living entities take place in the heart of the Supreme Being, and such forms take tangible shape at the time of creation. I mean, this is amazing stuff. So we have 4,300,000 years of our years. This is Brahma's day. So then we have 4,300,000 years of Brahma's night. So we have 8,600,000 years of Brahma's 24 hours. So then you multiply that by 365 and you have 1 year of Brahma. And you multiply that figure by 100 and you have Brahma's lifetime. And we go through hundreds, thousands, millions of these lifetimes. And Brahma's one lifetime, which is 8,600,000 years, multiplied by 365, multiplied by 100, is one breath of Lord Vishnu. So the concept of time, from our perspective, it's like, it's not even a fraction of a second. And we are involved in so much trials and tribulations to achieve what? From this whole cycle of birth and death and disease and old age. I mean, I don't want to feel that I'm imposing my ideas on everybody, but in the last 2 weeks I've been as sick as a parrot, as we say in English, and you just realize when we're saying Sharira Avidya Jal, oh Lord, this material body is the lump of ignorance. When you're not well and the body is down and out, you know what that means. Oh Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance. And the senses are a network of paths leading unto death. Of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and difficult to control. But you, dear Lord, you are so kind upon us. You've given us this nice prasadam just to help us control the tongue. I mean, if you look at the body, what the things that come out of every orifice are just unmentionable. Unmentionable. There's a beautiful quote from Srila Prabhupada, and it's just in relationship to how attached we become in this life. Prabhupada says this is in Calcutta actually in March 1972. You know, some people that keep a bird in a cage, a budgie or a parrot or something, to keep the bird in the cage. And sometimes, on occasion, people take the bird out and they let it go. And Prabhupada gives that example. He says, this is Prabhupada speaking. Sometimes somebody takes his bird in the field and lets him loose out of the cage. And the bird goes, and then again, he flies around and he comes back into the cage. This human form of body is just like being let loose, just like that bird. It's rare. We get this human form of body rarely. How rare it is. Now you get the freedom of flying away from this cage of birth and death, but that he'll not do. We'll come back again to the cage. We're not interested in how to get out of the cage. We are again and again coming back to the cage. So this is Prabhupada speaking. And this is a fact. I mean, we have this human form of life. We're given this opportunity. It's the only opportunity that is there to take full advantage of this philosophy, put it into practice, get out of this cycle of suffering, and we keep coming back to the cage of our own free will, because we're attached to the cage, as Prabhupada is describing here. Completely and totally attached to the cage. There was one article from, I don't know if you know Gargamuni Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's very, very dear disciple, Brahmananda Swami's brother, his god brother, and his biological brother. So he puts out these articles always about Prabhupada, beautiful, beautiful stories about Prabhupada he puts out every day on Facebook, and we're friends on Facebook, and I interviewed him for the Leela Amrita also when I was in America. And he puts all these quotes, beautiful quotes, to just snippets of what Prabhupada has said on certain things. So this morning he put out, Prabhupada is saying, always remember, we are situated in a civilization which is the lowest of mankind. So many strifes and wars going on all over the world. Prabhupada was speaking about the problems that were there at the time when Prabhupada was in New York. This is spoken in New York, actually, in 1966. Prabhupada is speaking as Gargamuni recorded it himself. And the war in Vietnam was going on. That was the big thing at the time. We always have some war somewhere going on, big. I remember myself as a teenager going down to the American embassy in Dublin, protesting and throwing stones and all this kind of stuff, being beaten by the police, protesting against the Vietnam War. Every generation goes through their little rebelliousness. So Prabhupada was speaking about so-called civilization. America's fighting to uphold civilization. So Prabhupada says, remember this. We are situated in a civilization which is the lowest of mankind. Not only I'm speaking of your United States, that is there, all over the world, even India, where so much culture was made for understanding God. Now this foolish Indian government, they're also teaching this nonsense, secular nonsense. I'm never criticizing America. America has given me so much. Don't think that I'm particularly criticizing some country or community. Never. But this is the age of Kali. Hypocrisy, simply hypocrisy. So we have to be very careful. So why does it say padam yadvi padam natesha? Because we have to be careful that we don't lose what we have gotten so far, this valuable human form of life, and which has brought us to this connection with the absolute truth. That is the real deal. And Prabhupada goes on to say, same, New York, 1966. Always you should remember, we cannot imagine in our feeble mind who or what is God. I think God is like this. This is nonsense. You have no thinking power Imagine, this is Prabhupada speaking just a few weeks after he formed the society. People are coming along who know nothing about Krishna consciousness in very early days. Nobody had even shaved up at this stage. Nobody even had a set of beads or a dhoti. There was no madunga, cartels, nothing. But still, from day one, Prabhupada was bold in his preaching. He didn't mince his words. He spoke directly. This is nonsense. You have no thinking power. You are under the grip of material nature. Material nature is pulling you by the ear. Prabhupada gives the example of, in his class, that you'd be pulled by the ear by the teacher. I got that also, pulled by the ear. Of course, it's not done these days. The teacher ends up in prison. But pulled by the ear, just like the bull is pulled by the nose, led along by a little boy. He has a ring in his nose. A little boy is pulling the bull. It's huge, big. 3 tons of a bull being led by a little boy. Material energy is leading us like that, pulled by the ear. You are being acted, you are being influenced, controlled, just like a puppet. Boom, boom, boom. Our destruction means material existence is a destruction of our spiritual existence. That's the real destruction. When we drag ourselves towards this material energy, which is strong. It's like a magnet. So these tiny little iron filings, you put the magnet there, boom, immediately. We are like that. Because our desire is to enjoy. This is natural, completely natural. The problem is we're trying to enjoy in the wrong way. We are Sat Chit Anand. We're full. Knowledge, eternity, and bliss. But we seek it in the wrong way. We purposely, knowingly put our hand in the fire. In the blacksmith's fire, straight in. Because destroyed does not mean that as a spiritual being, I'll be nowhere. No, this is my position, nowhere. I do not know. Just like I'm being kicked like a football. I have no place to go. You have seen a football playing, this is Prabhupada speaking. The football has no place. As soon as somebody comes with his feet, he kicks. And he kicks to somebody else, and he kicks. And then somebody else, and he kicks. Here's another body kicking, kicking, kicking. His only situation is being kicked, just like a football. So we are just like football, Prabhupada says. We are being kicked up. Now I am American. Next time I'll be kicked up to China. So we're so proud of our position. So proud of our civilization, as we like to think of it. And then in an encouraging way, Prabhupada goes on to say again, this is 1966. All of these are 1966. New York. And as Prabhupada was reading from his own copy of, these are Prabhupada's lecturing on Chaitanya Charitamrita. He only had his copy. It was in Bengali. Nobody else could read it. It hadn't been translated. There was no BBT or nothing at the time. It was just Prabhupada with his manuscripts and his books that he brought from India. Otherwise, there was nothing. We were reading in the early days. Satru Maharaj told me they were reading the Karmi Gitas wherever Karmi Gita was available. Prabhupada would give of course, the verses were the same, but Prabhupada would give the purport. Prabhupada would give the lecture on the verse. So this is in the days when there was nothing. So Prabhupada is saying, always remember that this Krishna consciousness is a sort of declaration of war with this illusory material nature. So there is war. She will always try to get you to fall down. The material energy is very strong. She is powerful. How you can save yourself? If you persistently, simply adhere to the devotional service of Krishna, there will be no more strength of this illusory nature to drag you down. No more. There will be no more power to get you into this province of sense gratification. And that's a fact. but we have to stick with it. Yes, it's an effort. It's an effort. For those of us who are not on the platform yet, where we see Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna, material energy is momentary lapse. Great, great, great devotees. The head of our Sampradaya, Lord Brahma, he fell victim. Lord Shiva, he fell victim. There's so many leelas of so many amazing personalities. Lord Indra, the king of heaven, he fell victim. Daksha became puffed up. We should always remember that this material life is our disease condition. It is not our healthy life. Because as spirit soul, we are healthy. By nature, we are joyful. There's no question of our being morose, unhappy, diseased. Never. We are Sat Chit Anand. It's again Prabhupada speaking. San Francisco, 1967. We are servants of God. We forget this material nonsense. That's all. But don't forget ourselves. Our identity is there. We're all servants of God. Krishna Das. This is the real ego. So ego is not dissolved. Ego cannot be dissolved. Ego is always there. But it is purified. It is purified. That is the thing. That is the connection. So the perfection of any electronic device is when it's connected to the power. It made with the most expensive, most amazing TV made by Samsung or Sony or whatever. If it's not connected to the power, it is just a lump of plastic and wires of no use whatsoever. Similarly, with this yantra, this machine that we are encaged in right now, unless it's connected to the source, useless. It's a waste of time. And we give it so much time and energy and devotion, and we pamper it, but it all comes to zero. And we still run headlong towards it in the hope that, yes, maybe one day I'll get the nectar for which I've been always hankering. What is that? It's like the carrot before the donkey. We just run and run and run. We never get it. It never comes. It never happens. It's an illusion. It all goes on in our head. As soon as we pick up Prabhupada's books, wow. Then the bubble bursts, just like the balloons downstairs in my house. Bing, pop. Illusion's gone. That shape, that form that we imagined was so wonderful, pop. In a millisecond, it's gone. I believe it's almost 6 o'clock. If there are any questions or comments, forgive me for the interruption to the talking. I just coming out of a bout of flu. I've been on my back for the last 2 weeks. I'm sorry for disturbing the flow of the thought and the class with my coughing business. But now I believe it's time to wind up. And if there are any questions or comments, thank you for your patience and perseverance. Much appreciated. I'll try to answer whatever questions might be there, or if someone has something to add, please, please, please do. Very grateful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful session. In spite of your illness, you did an excellent job, and thank you for making yourself available and pushing yourself. You are an inspiration to us. If I'm sick, I would say, oh, I don't even have to, I can't concentrate on japa, but here you are giving a class. So thank you so much for that. Are there any questions or comments?
Especially about balloons. Any questions about balloons?
We have balloons and every day is a party.
Yes, yes. Every word is a song. Every step is a dance.
Natma Prabhu, kindly ask, make your comment or question. Maybe he doesn't read the comment or question. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Then what pronounce to Vidura Prabhu.
Haribo.
Thank you for the wonderful class. Sorry about your short illness. Hoping you get a quick recovery. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So yes, I have a question about this big balloon. I have a question about the big balloon, the universe. Just
Please.
to ask, since you mentioned Lord Brahma, I had some devotees about a while back mentioning that when we come from the spiritual world, we all become Brahmas first, then go lower and lower if we can't go back to the spiritual world. Is it? Can you confirm this? Or
yes, I've heard that
true?
myself. Yeah, I've heard that many times actually. It's almost from the day I joined that when we enter the material realm, then we become a Brahma, and then of course live that lifetime, and then. But Prabhupada says it's not every Brahma is a devotee. Our Brahma is a devotee. To reach the stage of Brahma, you also pretty much have to be a devotee, but nonetheless, there is danger. The material energy is not, and Brahma's body, what is his body made from? His body is not like our body. Blood and bones and stool and urine and God knows what else. His body is made of intelligence. His body is made of intelligence. The higher you go in the material realm, still in the material world, the more subtle the energy becomes. And you know yourself, the more subtle the energy, we become attached to so many things. First of all, how? In our mind. Thinking, feeling, willing. And then, we think about something, we will it, and then we want to do it. So if that's in the direction of Krishna, so be it. But Brahma's body, his body with his four heads, it is made of intelligence. So that's quite a concept for us to understand. Just like we are spirit soul. I'm not this body, I'm not this hand, I'm not this head. I am 1/10,000th the part of the size of the tip of a hair. Now, that's something I read in the Bhagavatam. It's something I read in Srila Prabhupada's purport. Do I understand what that is? I haven't got a clue. But I read it, I take it for granted. I take it that it's a fact, because Prabhupada's telling us this is what it is. But when I look in the mirror, do I see 1/10,000th size the part of a tip of a hair? So yes, we are so infinitesimal, the spirit soul. And Brahma's body, whilst it is made of intelligence, he is also 1/10,000th the part of the tip of a hair. And he created the universe. Prabhupada gives the example of the pilot in the 747 when he's flying the plane. It's a huge, big plane, 400, 500 passengers in a plane. One plane being flown by someone who was 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. And that's just an aeroplane. That's not a universe. We read in the Bhagavatam of the great rishis, Kardama Muni, he created planets flying in the sky, planets flying in the sky. Just this is an ordinary soul, not the Lord. Planets. Lord Brahma created the universe. Look at how many look in the sky at night. you see these, if you manage to get to see anything through a telescope, you see the vastness of space, the vastness of the galaxies, even this tiny little galaxy that we're in, and this tiny, tiny little dot. It's like a grain of sand on a beach. Our planet is. And there's millions and millions and millions of these. So is it inconceivable that we fall down from that situation down to a worm and stool? No, it's not inconceivable, because the material energy just sucks you in. That's why it's only by the mercy of the Guru that we can get Krishna. It's only by the mercy of Krishna that we can get Guru. We have to beg for that mercy. At every step, we are in a dangerous position. We're hovering, as it is described, like a drop of water hovering on the lotus leaf. The smallest wind comes along and plop. Tiny little breeze, tiny little diversion. We have to be constantly alert, constantly alert. We can never, ever let up and let down our guard. Never. Prabhupada says in another quote, Prabhupada says, we have to continue the spiritual stand on the spiritual platform by Krishna consciousness, always remembering Krishna. Lord Vishnu should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastra should be the servants of these two principles. This is the process. You have to remember always Vishnu. That is meditation. That is samadhi. The samadhi meditation which is going on in the world is just rascaldom. That is not meditation. Meditation means always thinking of Vishnu. That is the real meditation. And what is that verse 9:14 that I'm always quoting? Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridha vrata namasyantascha mam bhakya nitya yukta upashate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. And 10:10, dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to. But we have to be in that groove. If we're in that groove, then we'll pick up something. We'll pick up the honeybee. He just goes from flower to flower to flower to flower. That's all he knows. And he picks up the pollen and he brings it back. He's covered in pollen. That's his job. So we want to be like the honeybee. We always want to go for the nectar. We go for the nectar and we stick with it, not be like the fly. Sometimes the fly will go in the honey. Sometimes the fly will go in the garbage. More time he'll go in the garbage. We want to be like the bee. Always go for the real deal. Go for the nectar. And this is the only thing that will satisfy us. Everything else will simply bring frustration. Thank you very much for your question, Prabhu. Much appreciated. I hope that gave you some answer. Thank you. Haribol.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Krishnatma Prabhu, for that question and Prabhu for that answer. I think we've exhausted our time, and let us chant the Hare Krishna mantra to celebrate Prabhuji's birthday today. And Krishnatma Prabhu, you can end the session for us today. Let us all chant.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpa Trivasta, Sinapevicha, Bhaktidam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namaha. Hare Hare Bol.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much.
Vidura
Happy
ki
birthday, Prabhuji. Jai.
Have
Hare
a
Hare Bol.
good celebration. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you. Hare Krishna. Good night, everybody.
Krishna.
Hare
Good night.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.